Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World. Today, we're diving into one of the most underestimated coins in American pockets, the 1980 Lincoln penny. That's right. That little copper coin you probably walked past on the sidewalk or tossed into a jar at the end of the day. It might just be hiding a secret. Because not all 1980 pennies are created equal, and some of them could be worth much, much more than just 1 cent. Stick around, because we're going to talk about what makes the 1980 penny special, the history behind it, the rare variations collectors are obsessed with, and the jaw-dropping amount one of these coins has been valued at. You might want to grab your coin jar before this video ends. Let's take it back to 1980. Ronald Reagan was campaigning for the presidency. The US was dealing with inflation, long gas lines, and Cold War tensions. But through all the global events of that year, the US Mint was doing what it had always done, producing coins for everyday use, including billions of pennies. In fact, more than 7.4 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1980 across 3 major minting locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. On the surface, the design hadn't changed much since 1959. You've got the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a symbol of integrity and leadership. Flip it over, and you see the Lincoln Memorial, complete with an incredibly tiny yet detailed figure of Lincoln seated in the center. The design is iconic, no doubt. But here's where things start to get interesting. The 1980 penny was one of the last years before a major change hit US coinage. Before 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper. After that, due to rising metal costs, the mint switched to copper-plated zinc, a much cheaper metal. That makes the 1980 penny one of the final full copper issues, which already gives it more historical and collector appeal. But now let's talk about what truly turns this common coin into a rare gem: condition and mint errors. Most of the 1980 pennies were circulated into everyday use. They've been scratched, tarnished, and worn down after years of being passed from pocket to pocket. But a small number of these coins were never circulated. They were either preserved by collectors, struck as proofs, or accidentally saved in mint condition. These are the coins that collectors dream about, especially if they've been graded as mint state 66 or higher by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. Now, if a 1980 penny is in absolutely flawless condition, no scratches, no discoloration, full luster, it's already going to be worth more than face value. But the real treasures? The ones that command huge prices? Those are the error coins. Let's talk about a few examples of errors that have shown up on 1980 pennies. Double die errors. These happen when the die used to strike the coin has a slight misalignment, causing a doubling effect on the date, lettering, or details. If you look closely at the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" and see a shadowed, doubled image, hold on to that penny. Off-center strikes. Some 1980 pennies were struck when the blank wasn't properly aligned, resulting in a coin that's noticeably off-center. The more dramatic the error, and the more of the original design that's still visible, the more valuable it can be. Struck on the wrong planchet. Every now and then, a penny might get struck on a metal blank meant for a different coin. A 1980 penny struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank? Now that's rare, and collectors go crazy for them. Proof coins with variations. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors, which are known for their shiny, mirror-like finish and extremely detailed design. Some of these proofs have unique features or mint mark differences that set them apart. It's not just the errors that bring the value, it's the combination of rarity, condition, and uniqueness. And when you bring all 3 of those together, you're no longer dealing with pocket change, you're holding a serious collector's item. Imagine this: you're going through an old coin collection. Maybe it belonged to your grandfather, or maybe you've just kept a jar of coins for years and never really looked at them. You pull out a 1980 penny. It looks different. It shines more. The details are sharp. You take a closer look, and notice something unusual about the lettering. You do a little research, maybe even send it off to get graded. And then comes the surprise: that tiny coin, smaller than a bottle cap, turns out to be a rare variation. It's in mint state. Maybe it's even an error coin. And just like that, something worth 1 cent becomes something that can pay for a car. Or a down payment. Or a college semester, because in very rare cases, a 1980 Lincoln penny in exceptional condition, especially with a rare mint error or proof distinction, has been sold for as much as $30,000. That's right. $30,000. So the next time you come across a 1980 penny, don't just toss it in with the rest. Take a good look. Check the condition. Inspect the mint mark. Look for doubling, off-centering, or anything unusual. Because the difference between a common coin and a collector's dream might just be in the tiniest detail. Today, we're diving into something truly special, a coin that most people might overlook in their pocket change but could actually be worth more than you might imagine. We're talking about the 1979 Lincoln penny. Now, I know what you're thinking, a penny? How valuable can it really be? Well, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you might just find yourself digging through your coin jar or checking every 1979 penny you come across. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. First, let's rewind to 1979. The world was in the midst of a big transition. The Cold War was still a dominating force, disco music was peaking, and the world was still coming to terms with the aftermath of the 1970s. Meanwhile, in the United States, the U.S. Mint was busy producing billions of coins, pennies included. That year alone, over 7 billion pennies were struck. But what makes the 1979 Lincoln penny so fascinating is that while the vast majority of these coins were used in everyday transactions, some of them have become incredibly rare, and surprisingly valuable, thanks to a variety of factors. Let's talk about the design. The 1979 Lincoln penny features the iconic bust of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a symbol of integrity and unity. On the reverse side, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a tribute to the 16th president's legacy. The design had been in place for several decades, but the 1979 pennies were the last batch before the mint made some significant changes to U.S. coinage in the years that followed. Before we get into why these coins can be worth a small fortune, let's first talk about the historical context of the penny. In 1979, the penny was still being made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it its iconic weight and color. The copper penny had been a part of the American landscape since 1909 when the Lincoln cent was first introduced to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. It's hard to believe that something so small and seemingly insignificant could have such a rich history behind it, isn't it? But what makes the 1979 penny especially interesting for collectors is the fact that there were mistakes made during the minting process. And those mistakes? Well, they could be worth thousands of dollars if you happen to have one in your collection. Now, we all know that mint errors can make a coin more valuable. A small mistake during the minting process can turn an ordinary penny into a highly coveted collector's item. And the 1979 Lincoln penny is no exception. Some of these pennies were struck with double dies, a condition where the design is slightly misaligned or duplicated on the coin. The most common place to find doubling is in the date, the lettering on the obverse side, or the Liberty inscription. If you find a 1979 penny with noticeable doubling on the text or the date, hold on to it, because that error could be worth a lot more than a single cent. Another error that makes these pennies valuable is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, resulting in the design being off-center on the coin. The more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable the coin can be. In some cases, off-center 1979 pennies can fetch incredible prices at auction, especially if the error is visually striking and the coin remains in good condition. Then there are the proof coins. Proof coins are specially made for collectors, with a much higher level of detail and a shiny, mirror-like finish. The 1979 proof pennies were struck at the San Francisco Mint, and some of these coins have been known to be worth a lot more than their face value. What makes them even more valuable is if they come with unique variations, like a subtle change in the mint mark or other distinguishing features. A pristine proof coin from 1979 could be worth quite a bit of money if it is part of a unique variety. Now, here's the kicker, the real showstopper. A 1979 penny with the right error, in exceptional condition, and graded by a reputable coin grading service can sell for thousands of dollars. We're talking about a 1979 Lincoln penny with a double die or off-center strike that is well preserved, with sharp details, and a high-grade rating. It might sound unbelievable, but the reality is that rare 1979 pennies have sold for as much as $33,000. Yes, you heard me right, $33,000 for a coin that originally only had a face value of 1 cent. So, next time you find yourself with a 1979 penny in your hand, don't just toss it in the jar. Give it a closer look. Is the date doubled? Is there a mint error? If you find one of these rarities, you could be holding onto a small treasure. Before you go, let me remind you, rare coins, especially those with errors or in mint condition, can be incredibly valuable. They don't always come with a warning sign, so it's essential to be diligent and check for the signs that set them apart from the common ones. If you happen to find one of these rare coins, the value can be substantial, and you might just stumble upon a jackpot. Today, we're going to talk about a coin that many people overlook, but that's hiding a fascinating secret. It's the 1977 Lincoln penny, something you might have lying around in your pocket change, but it could be worth far more than just 1 cent. If you think that all pennies are just the same, you might be in for a surprise because this seemingly ordinary coin could be worth thousands. So, let's dive into the details. 1977 was an interesting year for the US Mint and for the world in general. The country was in the middle of the 1970s, a decade marked by political tension, economic struggles, and the rise of consumerism. But while all these significant events were going on, the US Mint was hard at work producing billions of pennies for circulation. The 1977 Lincoln penny is often overlooked, but collectors know that there's more to this little coin than meets the eye. At first glance, the 1977 penny doesn't seem all that different from other Lincoln pennies in circulation at the time. On the front, you have the classic image of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, whose profile has graced the penny since 1909. On the reverse side, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, which had been the design on the back of the penny since 1959. So far, it sounds pretty standard, right? Well, here's where things get interesting. You see, the US Mint produced a massive number of pennies in 1977, over 7 billion to be exact. And most of them were used in everyday transactions, which means they were exposed to wear and tear over the years. However, just like every other year, some of these coins were struck with errors or variations that make them rare and valuable. The most common of these errors are double die coins. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin has a slight misalignment, causing the design to appear twice or even more. This error can be especially noticeable on the date and the lettering, such as the word liberty or in God we trust on the obverse. Imagine holding a penny where the date is doubled and the inscription is blurry. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, these kinds of errors are highly sought after by collectors because they're rare, and they can add significant value to the coin, but that's not all. Another possible variation you should look out for is an off-center strike. An off-center strike happens when the blank metal disc, or planchet, isn't properly aligned when the coin is struck. The result is a coin that's slightly misaligned, causing parts of the design to be cut off. These coins can be very striking and visually unique, and they're often much more valuable than their properly struck counterparts. There are also proof coins. These are specially struck coins made for collectors, and they have a much higher level of detail than regular circulating coins. The 1977 proof pennies, which were produced at the San Francisco Mint, are considered highly collectible. Some collectors even look for subtle variations in the minting process, such as differences in the way the mint mark appears, or slight differences in the design elements. If you have a 1977 proof penny, especially one in pristine condition, it could be worth significantly more than a regular penny. So, now that we've discussed the possible errors and varieties, let's talk about condition. When it comes to coins, the condition is everything. If a coin has been in circulation for years, it's probably seen some wear and tear. But when a coin is in mint condition, it's essentially as close to perfect as it can get. A coin that's been kept in pristine condition is much more valuable because collectors are always on the lookout for coins that have been well preserved and haven't been damaged or worn down over the years. Now, here's where things get really exciting. If you happen to come across a 1977 Lincoln penny in mint condition, especially one with an error like a double die or off-center strike, you could be holding on to something incredibly valuable. Coins with such errors can sometimes be sold at auction for much more than their face value. And in rare cases, especially for coins with unique errors or very high grades, a 1977 Lincoln penny has been known to sell for as much as $35,000, yes, you heard me right, $35,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe, right? But for collectors, finding a coin in mint condition with a significant error is like finding a needle in a haystack. These rare pennies can fetch such a high price because they're not only part of American history, but they're also unique pieces of art, painstakingly struck and full of character. So, the next time you dig through your coin jar or spot a 1977 penny in your pocket change, take a moment to check it out closely. Look for any signs of errors like doubling on the date or lettering. Check if the design is off-center. If it looks pristine, maybe even send it off for professional grading to see if it's worth much more than just 1 cent. You never know, you might just have a small treasure hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to talk about a coin that you might have lying around in your pocket change or coin jar, but one that could be hiding a huge secret. That's right, today we're exploring the 1971 Lincoln penny, an often overlooked coin that could be worth far more than its face value. By the end of this video, you might just want to start checking every 1971 penny you find. Now, the year 1971 was quite a turning point for the US Mint. This was the first year that the US stopped minting pennies in silver and shifted to using copper-plated zinc. The change came as part of the rising cost of raw materials, and while most people at the time didn't think twice about it, that small shift would eventually lead to some interesting developments in the coin world. For collectors, the 1971 Lincoln penny is one of those coins that didn't seem special at first but has gained a lot of attention due to a few important factors. Let's talk about the design. The 1971 penny, like most Lincoln pennies of the time, features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design that has been in use since 1909. On the reverse side, you'll find the iconic Lincoln Memorial, which has been part of the penny's design since 1959. While these designs might seem standard, it's the production process that gives this penny its allure, especially when it comes to collectors and coin enthusiasts. Although millions of 1971 pennies were minted, what makes this coin particularly interesting for collectors is that there were errors and variations in some of these coins. Minting errors, as you may know, are a key reason why certain coins become highly valuable. These errors can happen for a variety of reasons, but they make these coins stand out and often dramatically increase their worth. If you're lucky enough to find a 1971 penny with one of these rare errors, you could have a valuable treasure on your hands. One of the most common and valuable errors in the 1971 penny is the double die. A double die error occurs when the coin's die, the stamp used to imprint the design on the coin, shifts slightly during the minting process. This causes the design to be stamped multiple times, leading to a noticeable doubling of the image, especially on the date or the inscriptions such as "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." The 1971 penny is known to have a few of these double die errors, and these coins are highly sought after by collectors. A well-preserved 1971 penny with a strong double die error can fetch a pretty penny, so to speak. Another thing that makes the 1971 Lincoln penny interesting is the potential for off-center strikes. This error happens when the metal planchet, the blank disc that's stamped to create a coin, isn't properly aligned in the press. As a result, parts of the coin's design are missing, or the design is shifted off to one side. An off-center strike coin can look visually striking and is often considered a unique error. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin can be. So, if you find a 1971 penny with a noticeable off-center design, you might have a rare gem in your hands. Another potential variation in the 1971 penny that can drive up its value is the proof coin. Proof coins are specially made coins, created for collectors and not for circulation. These coins are struck multiple times with specially polished dies, creating a mirror-like finish and highly detailed design. While the regular circulation 1971 pennies are made to be functional and durable, proof coins are designed to look perfect. If you happen to come across a proof version of the 1971 penny, especially one in immaculate condition, you could be holding a coin that's worth much more than its face value. Now let's get into what truly excites collectors about this particular coin: the condition. When it comes to coins, especially rarities like the 1971 penny, condition is everything. The better the condition, the higher the value. Most pennies from 1971 that have been in circulation for decades have worn edges, faded inscriptions, and scratches, which makes them less valuable. However, if you happen to come across a 1971 penny that's been well preserved and shows no signs of wear, you could be looking at a coin worth a small fortune. A coin that's rated as a mint state, which means it has essentially no signs of wear, can be worth significantly more. Now, I know what you're thinking: just how much can a 1971 penny be worth? The answer might surprise you. If you happen to have a 1971 Lincoln penny with a double die error or an off-center strike, and it's in good condition, it could be worth a lot more than just 1 cent. The most impressive example of a 1971 penny sale occurred when a rare, well-preserved penny with a noticeable error sold for $38,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $38,000 for a single penny. That's the kind of value that many coin collectors dream of. Finding a rare minting error, especially on a coin that was struck decades ago, is a dream come true for any enthusiast. And the best part? These errors aren't always easy to spot, so you could find one without even realizing it. So, the next time you're going through your coin jar or rummaging through your change, take a close look at those 1971 pennies. Pay attention to the date, the design, and especially any signs of doubling or off-center strikes. It could be the difference between a penny worth just 1 cent and a coin worth thousands of dollars. Today, we're diving into a coin that you might have lying around in your pocket or coin jar, but it could be worth way more than just 1 cent. That's right, we're talking about the 1979 Lincoln penny. This little coin, which was minted over 4 decades ago, has garnered significant interest in the world of coin collectors. So, sit back, relax, and let's explore the fascinating world of the 1979 Lincoln penny, its history, and the potential hidden value it might have. Now, you might be thinking, it's just another penny, right? But there's more to this coin than meets the eye. When the U.S. Mint struck the 1979 Lincoln penny, it was a time of transition. The U.S. economy was in a bit of a tailspin after the 1970s oil crisis, and people were starting to notice inflation creeping into everyday life. But the Mint was still busy producing coins for circulation, and the 1979 penny was no exception. The design, as most of you probably know, features the iconic Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, with the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side. But while the design hasn't changed much over the years, there are some key factors that make this specific penny stand out, especially for collectors that in the world of coins. Errors and variations are the real gems. You see, while billions of 1979 pennies were minted, only a few of them were struck with interesting variations or errors that make them worth a lot more than their face value. One of the most sought-after errors in the 1979 penny is the double die error. A double die error happens when the die that strikes the coin is misaligned, causing the design to appear twice or slightly off. This is most noticeable on the date and the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" on the obverse side. Double die coins are incredibly rare, and because they are so distinct, they attract a lot of attention from collectors. Another type of error that can make the 1979 penny incredibly valuable is the off-center strike. This happens when the metal planchet, the blank disc that gets stamped to create the coin, is not properly aligned in the press. As a result, the coin's design appears off-center, and part of the coin's image might be missing. Off-center strike errors are popular among collectors because they are visually striking and unique. An off-center strike can vary from being slightly off to a dramatic misalignment, and the more extreme the misalignment, the higher the coin's value. It's not just errors that make the 1979 penny desirable, condition is also a huge factor. As you may already know, coin collectors place a great deal of importance on the quality and condition of a coin. Most of the pennies from 1979 that were circulated for decades have seen wear and tear, leaving them scratched, discolored, and not in the best shape. However, if you happen to have a 1979 penny in mint condition, with little to no wear, this could significantly increase its value. Mint state coins are highly sought after because they look as if they were freshly struck and never saw the light of circulation. These coins are much rarer than their worn counterparts, and collectors are always on the lookout for them, but here's something that really gets collectors excited: proof coins. Proof coins are specially minted coins, created with extra care and precision. Unlike the regular circulation coins, proof coins are made for collectors and have a much higher level of detail. They are struck multiple times with specially polished dies, resulting in a mirror-like finish that makes the designs on the coin pop. The 1979 proof penny is an example of one of those coins that appeals to collectors. If you happen to have a 1979 penny that was made as part of a proof set, and it's in flawless condition, it could be worth quite a bit more than a regular penny. Now, let's get to the most exciting part: the value. You're probably wondering how much this little coin could actually be worth. Well, it's safe to say that the value of a 1979 Lincoln penny can vary greatly depending on the condition, the type of error it may have, and the market demand at the time. But for a well-preserved 1979 penny that has a double die error, off-center strike, or other rare variations, you could be looking at a value that far exceeds the typical 1-cent face value. In fact, certain rare 1979 pennies have been known to sell for as much as $30,200. Yes, that's right, $30,200 for a single penny. Isn't it crazy to think that a simple 1979 penny could be worth that much? For collectors, finding a coin like this is like striking gold. So, the next time you come across a 1979 penny, make sure to check it closely for any signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or pristine condition. If it has one of these unique characteristics, you could be holding onto something that's worth a fortune. If you found this video helpful and exciting, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more coin discoveries. There are so many hidden treasures out there, and with a little knowledge and some careful checking, you might just find the next one. Thanks for watching, and happy coin hunting.